If the Kiev authorities demonstrate an unwillingness to reach a resolution peacefully, we will successfully achieve all the tasks before us. Through the special military operation, by military means.
Yes, we all know that Putin is ready to fight in Ukraine until he's in his own mausoleum.
Ukraine, named after Vladimir Ilyich Lenin.
By the way, Putin's place is right next to Lenin. Or should he be jailed? I prefer the latter, but share your thoughts below.
Have you completely lost your mind or what? You're as dumb as this table.
Yeah, Putin is only that brave when he's sitting in his bunker. But in reality, he is a complete coward who is far too afraid to openly and honestly explain why he launched an invasion of Ukraine. Why?
That's why we have every possible justification to characterize today's regime as neo-Nazis. Well,
Pot calling the kettle black, Putin is talking about himself.
whoever calls names, that's what they are themselves.
Exactly. So today, let's try to answer the question, why does the main terrorist of the 21st century hate Ukraine so much that he went to war against it? And most importantly, when did the Kremlin make this decision?
I have made the decision to conduct a special military operation.
No, not on February 24th, 2022. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Putin started a full-scale war that Russia had been preparing for decades. 2014 is the starting point.
After an extraordinarily long, arduous, and deeply exhausting journey, Crimea and Sevastopol are finally making their triumphant return to their rightful and eternal home harbor.
And again, no. The annexation of Crimea and the war in Donbas, that too was the result of long-term preparation. The idea of waging war against Ukraine was born in Russia much earlier, back in Yeltsin's time. Remember that guy who loved vodka and dancing? Yeah, Boris Nikolaevich. He wasn't just a dancer, he was also a conductor. Just imagine how much he had to drink before that. But you know, that old man wasn't as simple as he seemed. Imperial ambitions and the desire to occupy Ukrainian lands existed even under him. And yes, we're going to start our story precisely with the temporarily occupied Crimea. In
our diplomatic portfolio, there isn't a single request, not a single demand.
These were exclusively proposals that were specifically designed for the purpose of achieving greater autonomy in the economic, international trade, and commercial business relations of the Republic. Crimea, as part of the Crimean Peninsula, with the Republic of Ukraine and the Russian Federation.
Yes, these grainy, yellowish VHS frames from the year 1994 vividly capture the official inauguration ceremony of Crimea's first president, Yuri Meshkov. But in reality, this was the Kremlin's first attempt to begin the annexation of the Ukrainian peninsula.
I will be holding talks with the president of Ukraine. Meetings are being arranged with President Yeltsin and other leaders of the Commonwealth countries.
Okay, one more time. This shot here, which, was of the first and thank God only president of Crimea, his name was Yuri Meshkov. He really gave off that whole Russian world vibe. Even back then, in 1994, just imagine, 32 years ago, with
This duty, I will go no matter what. Oh.
Yeah, oh yes, Meshkov handled his duties. And in reality, he had just one job, to stir up Crimea, to spread the ideas of that damned Russian world. A sort of prototype of the war criminal Aksionov from the wild 90s. Take a look at this.
Many remember Yuri Meshkov, who, while serving as president of the ARC, wanted to introduce the ruble zone and campaigned for the peninsula to join the Russian Federation.
Can you imagine that? A ruble zone in Crimea. Turns out, this idea was floating around long before 2014. Meshkov was probably getting bags of Moscow money to convince Crimeans of just one thing. Their land is part of Russia. But something didn't go according to plan.
In the year 1995, Leonid Kuchma decisively removed Yuri Meshkov from power, effectively abolishing his position. He left for Russia and continued his anti-Ukrainian activities there.
So what do you think? Is that the end of the story? Of course not. This Meshkov runs off to Russia, so to speak, paving the way, clearing the path for Yanukovych. And when the occupation of the peninsula happens, Meshkov comes back to once again support Russia. Here are some shots from 2014.
Crimea is my homeland. We've lived and continue to live the same life as you.
Having been long separated from his cherished ancestral homeland and from his own resilient people, he finally returned to take a deeply active and committed part in defending Crimea's vital interests.
Yuri Meshkov will buy in 2019 after suffering the fourth at a stroke in Turkey. But by that time, Russia is already fully at war with Ukraine, thanks in no small part to people like Meshkov, of course. And yes, by then Yeltsin is already in the past. Since 2000, the maniac Putin has been in power.
Every single good thing that you have carefully planned out will definitely come true.
Yeah, right, sure. But we know what Putin himself had been planning for a long time, even back then, in the early 2000s. The thing is, in the US, transcripts of conversations between Putin and Bush Jr. have been declassified. Let's start with 2001. 25 years have passed. I would like to emphasize that the accession of a country like Ukraine to NATO will, in the long run, create a field of conflict for you and for us. A long-term confrontation. That's what the Russian dictator told Bush. Let me put it in plain language. I will go to war with Ukraine. And in the year 2003, there was a very significant and detailed rehearsal for the process of annexation. Yes, that's exactly what it was. Preparation for invasion and provocation. Tuzla Island in the Kerch Strait. In
2003, Russia began building a dam from its own shore, straight toward Tuzla. Ukraine saw this as a threat to its sovereignty. And
at that particular point in time, Ukraine did precisely the most appropriate thing by viewing the situation in that specific manner. That is exactly how good neighbors should ideally conduct themselves.
This was a move by Russia to destabilize the situation in Crimea and to see how ready Ukraine was to defend itself.
And already in 2003, Ukraine was actually ready to defend its land. The Ukrainian armed forces were put on combat alert, and Putin was clearly shown his place. Clear and straightforward.
Leonid Kuchma was on his way to Latin America for a visit, but turned the plane around over the Atlantic. A few hours later, he was already watching the neighbors through binoculars and sending them messages, reinforcing them with a quiet knock. The presidential fist.
To negotiate on those issues that have already been decided for Ukraine.
It's a shame right now. In place of Tuzla Island stands the Crimean Bridge, but that's just for now. Back in 2003, the Russians backed off, even under Putin. But the spreading infection of the Russian world refused to abandon its idea of forcefully conquering Ukrainian cities.
After the events of 2003, the Russian leadership calmed down for a while. Or rather, they pretended that they no longer had claims on Ukrainian territories. Nevertheless, Putin and his cronies kept preparing for war.
Preparing for war, that's the key point. Let's go back once again to the declassified transcripts of the conversation between Putin and George W. Bush. This is already the year 2008. By the way, that's the year when the Kremlin attacked Georgia, just reminded. But here's the thing, Putin was already mouthing off about Ukraine back then. The dictator also repeated his narrative to Bush about Ukraine being an artificially created state back in Soviet times. And he expressed concerns about NATO's military infrastructure moving closer to Russia's borders. So basically, Putin's delusions about NATO not expanding eastward, they all started back then, 18 years ago. And as for the so-called artificiality of Ukraine, even under Yanukovych, but even before the annexation of Crimea, Putin was doing everything he could to emphasize this, so to speak. He was trying to work on the Crimean electorate. I'm putting this in Putin's own words. Just look at this craziness. This is 2010, still in Crimea.
Vladimir Putin is winning over the Crimean bikers. The Prime Minister of Russia took part in a biker show in Sevastopol today.
Yes, you heard that right. In 2010, Yanukovych was already kind of the president and was spending his vacation in Crimea. And Putin, under both Russian and Ukrainian flags, they were side by side, was riding across the peninsula on a bike. Can you even imagine something like that? It really happened. At first, Putin acts like, just a regular guy.
it is a truly democratic means of transportation. And naturally, there are also these incredibly powerful souped-up machines, these tricked-out metal beasts.
The one I rode in on today.
Well, then the jokes and banter is set aside. Putin starts pushing the party line.
What I would particularly like to express my deep gratitude to you for is that you do not ever lose sight of what these places mean to both Ukraine and Russia. Please do not forget to pay your sincere respects to the memory of those who sacrificed their very lives on this land, those who died for their homeland.
And yes, friends, this is a vivid example of how even back in 2010, there was preparation. Not military, but informational for the annexation of Crimea. And the military preparation was happening in parallel.
That is everything. You did a great job. Yeah.
And what comes next is even more telling. These are already shots from 2019. Same location. Crimea has been under occupation for 5 years. Putin is on a bike again. Only now there are no Ukrainian flags next to him. Yanukovych is gone too. But next to Putin now, Aksionov. And he struts around Crimea like he owns the place. This is temporary. And Putin is once again giving his fiery speeches that are just nauseating. And it's a really terrifying déjà vu. You saw what happened in 2010. And what happened in 2019 when Crimea was under occupation? It's very telling. And
I am truly and deeply heartened that such brave, extraordinary, and courageous individuals are serving as a powerful and inspiring example for young people in our country, and showing them exactly how they should honor and treat their homeland, Russia.
friends, here's how it is. For many years, Russia was rocking the boat in Crimea and preparing for war there, as I've already shown you. But what about Donbas? Well, there's something to tell here too, believe me.
Pay attention to the black, blue, red flags of the DPR that appeared in Donetsk in the spring of 2014 in the hands of opponents of Euromaidan. This parody tricolor was actually created back in 2004 to 2005 as the flag of the public organization Donetsk Republic.
Let's make this clear once again. Those very flags, these colors right here. The flags of the so-called DPR showed up in Donbas as early as 10 years before the invasion. And why is that? Because Russian agents were already at work back then.
One of its founders, Andrei Purbin, who later became the chairman of the DPR People's Council, had been organizing pro-Russian rallies, strikes, and pickets at the SBU building in Donbas since the time of the First Maidan.
So basically, in Crimea, there was Meshkul, who I already told you about, and in Donetsk region, Purgin was stirring things up.
Purgin and his associates claimed that the creation of the Donetsk Republic was supposedly a response to the First Maidan and the appearance of the black, blue, red tricolors as the flags of the DPR. A response to Euromaidan.
The logic is rock solid, but why were passports for these republics, not yet in the Russian World Project, being issued? Was that like for consolidating society or something?
Handing out passports of the Donetsk Republic. Throughout the period of 2011 to 2012, when Yanukovych occupied the presidential seat, and his party of regions had a complete monopoly over political power.
To be honest, that is absolutely beyond any words, really. What more details, Pesharov?
People in Luhansk remember how, in 2012, at the Cosmos shopping center, which belonged to another Putin supporter, Vladislav Krivobokov, there were some strange events held where these passports were handed out, along with flyers and literature. On the covers from that time, you can clearly see the same tricolor with the double-headed eagle. The people handing all this out kept repeating the same thing. Ours will be coming here soon.
Well, yeah, yours did come. But yours only came temporarily. And those very people of yours caused so much chaos in Donbas. It's honestly beyond words. Here's a small example.
Lana Karpinski, aged 25 years old, is currently at entrance number 3.
Just look at what these people have been driven to. They're scooping up water straight off the asphalt, from a busted sewer line. How far do you have to push people to make them do that? This is a nightmare.
Remember, at the very beginning I asked, when did Russia decide it would go to war against Ukraine? And when did it decide it would start killing Ukrainians? Well, here's one, not some made-up story.
Please just try to remember the date of August 24th. In 1991, Ukraine became an independent, democratic country.
Yes, that's the point of no return. It was exactly on August 24th, 1991, when Ukraine finally became independent. Well, the Russian maniacs just can't understand that we are not Russia. Yes, we make mistakes sometimes, of course, but we're following our own path. And it's exactly these images that used to enrage Yeltsin, and now drive Putin into a kind of animalistic fury. They still believe they can conquer Ukraine. Well, good luck with that, and you'll just break your teeth. Ukraine was, is, and will remain independent.